energies. Purport: the science of God analyzes the constitutional position of God and his diverse energies. Material nature is called Prakriti, or the energy of the Lord, in his different Purusha incarnations, expansions, as described in the Swatvata Tantra. Vishnu's tu त्रीणि रूपाणि पुरुषाख्यानि अतो विदुः एkantu महतः षष्टिर् द्वितीयं त्वन्दा संस्थितम् तृतीयं सर्वभूतास्तं तानि ज्ञात्वा विमुच्यते. For material creation, Lord Krishna's plenary expansion assumes three Vishnus. The first one, Mahavishnu, creates the total material energy known as Mahatattva. The second, Garbhodakashayi Vishnu, enters into all the universes to create diversities in each of them. The third, Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, is diffused as the all-pervading supersoul in all the universes and is known as Paramatma, who is present even within the atoms. Anyone who knows these three Vishnus can be liberated from material entanglement. This material world is a temporary manifestation of one of the energies of the Lord. All the activities of the material world are directed by these three Vishnu expansions of Lord Krishna. These Purushas are called incarnations. Generally, one who does not know the science of God, Krishna, assumes that this material world is for the enjoyment of the living entities and that the living entities are the causes or Purushas, controllers and enjoyers of the material energy. According to Bhagavad Gita, this atheistic conclusion is false. In the verse under discussion, it is stated that Krishna is the original cause of the material manifestation. Srimad Bhagavatam also confirms this. The ingredients of the material manifestation are separated energies of the Lord. Even the Brahma Jyoti, which is the ultimate goal of the impersonalist, is a spiritual energy manifested in the spiritual sky. There are no spiritual diversities in Brahma Jyoti, as there are in the Vaikuntha Lokas. And the impersonalist accepts this Brahma Jyoti as the ultimate eternal goal. The Paramatma manifestation is also a temporary, all-pervasive aspect of the Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. The Paramatma manifestation is not eternal in the spiritual world. Therefore, the factual, absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. He is the complete energetic person and he possesses different separated and internal energies. In the material energy, the principal manifestations are 8, as above mentioned. Out of these, the first 5 manifestations, namely earth, water, fire, air, and sky, are called the 5 gigantic creations or the gross creations, within which the 5 sense objects are included. They are the manifestations of physical, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. Material science comprises these 10 items and nothing more. But the other 3 items, namely mind, intelligence, and false ego, are neglected by the materialists. Philosophers who deal with mental activities are also not perfect in knowledge because they do not know the ultimate source, Krishna. The false ego, I am, and it is mine, which constitute the basic principle of material existence, includes 10 sense organs for material activities. Intelligence refers to the total material creation called the Mahatattva. Therefore, from the 8 separated energies of the Lord are manifest the 24 elements of the material world, which are the subject matter of Sankhya atheistic philosophy. They are originally offshoots from Krishna's energies and are separated from him. But atheistic Sankhya philosophers with a poor fund of knowledge do not know Krishna as the cause of all causes. The subject matter for discussion in the Sankhya philosophy is only the manifestation of the external energy of Krishna as it is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for reading that. It was a pretty long purport. So there are several points on here that we'll discuss, and then we'll open it up for questions. So here, the first point of concept was the science of God. So when we say, Mataji, actually, I've heard her in 18 days classes saying that, Krishna conscious is nothing but a science. So what do we do in science? We experiment. We try to analyze, then we try to infer something from there. So typically in terms of like a Mayavadi philosophy, they what is the first thing that they say is there's no God, right? But Krishna separated energies, these 8 concepts that they're talking about, which is earth, water, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, false ego. Now, if you ask them what is the source behind it, they will not be able to answer, because even in science we have something called as the Big Bang theory, right? Where what happens is there was like a black hole, there was a Big Bang, and because of the reaction of the Big Bang, several entities were created. And I've heard Mataji also sharing in a lot of classes, like where she takes a pen and says, now if I make a statement that in a pet and like unalive person, an unalive like non-entity like a pen, if it creates a live human being, what would you think? You would think I'm crazy, right? So a live entity, anything which is alive, can only be created by a live entity. It cannot be created by something that is a dead matter. So that was just as an example that they were sharing, is the basic concept behind Mayavada philosophy is that there is no God, because they don't want to accept that there's a person behind it. They just say that there is no God, but they cannot give us a solid answer about who created earth, who created water, who created air. They don't have an answer for it. So hence the concept of Krishna consciousness is nothing but like a total science, where we understand, where we analyze. But where are we going to get the proof from? We have the Shastras, which Krishna has given us. We use that to try and analyze who Krishna is, what is his power. Now, for the material creation, Krishna, expands himself into 3 different Vishnus when the creation takes place. Mahatattva is nothing but I've heard her explaining it as like the raw material. So at the end of Mahapralaya, when everything goes and gets destroyed and comes into Krishna, the basic raw material which is out there from which the universe is created is called Mahatattva. So Mahavishnu creates the total energy called as Mahatattva, which think about it as the raw material that you're using for constructing the universe. Then Garbhodakshaya Vishnu enters into each universe. So that's a planetary expansion of Krishna. He expands himself into each universe and creates diversities in them, because through Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, he is looking at the Prakriti with a glance, and then he's impregnating the Prakriti and creating a lot of different types of living entities. The third, and from each, when these different living entities are created, now what does Krishna leave us alone? No, he enters into each one of them as Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, which is nothing but the Paramatma feature in all of us. Now, anybody who can completely understand, when we say understand, it also means realization of these 3 Vishnus. Prabhupada is saying that they will be liberated from all the material engagement. Now, there's a very unique line where here it says, I think this line, the material world is a temporary manifestation of one of the energies of the Lord. Now, why do we say it is a temporary manifestation? Now, it is a temporary manifestation because what happens at the end of Mahapralaya? The universe is destroyed, right? So even though this material world is an energy, as a separated energy of Krishna, it still gets destroyed. That is the reason why it's called as a temporary manifestation. Now, all these different expansions of Vishnu are also called Purushas. But where is this line here? But people who don't understand the science of God assume that this material world is created for enjoyment of the living entities like us. However, who's the real enjoyer? The real enjoyer is Krishna. Now, the line that is said in here is, according to Bhagavad Gita, this atheistic conclusion. When I think of atheistic, the word atheistic, the general realization for me is a person who does not believe in God. However, if you think that you are an enjoyer, like you are, that living entity is an enjoyer, according to Bhagavad Gita, that person is also an atheist, because you have to come to the realization that I'm not the enjoyer. The only sole enjoyer in this world is Krishna, and my job as a soul, as an individual, to go back to Krishna is to be an eternal servitor of Krishna. So it's a very powerful line, at least for me, that I realized was just even thinking that it is, this is mine, this is myself, this is my property, this is my family. When I come to that conclusion, or I am going to be the owner of this is mine, when I come to the concept of I, that concept itself is an atheistic idea. Not really thinking that was like, yes, I believe in God. That's the definition of atheistic. So according to Bhagavad Gita, if I do not understand the concept that I am not the enjoyer and the only enjoyer is Krishna, that also is called as atheistic. Now, in Brahma Jyotir, which is the which is the final goal of the impersonalist. The spiritual energy is, what is Brahma Jyotir? It is like a spiritual effulgence, the light that is coming out from Krishna. Where is that? So where is it coming from? Who's the source of that Brahma Jyotir? That is also a person. But typically, a Mayavadi will not realize it. They'll say, no, there's nothing beyond the scope of Brahma Jyotir. They don't come to the realization, and hence they're stuck at the stage of the Brahman feature. They don't even come to the feature of the Paramatma. So it's Brahman, Paramatma, and then finally you have the Bhagwan feature on there. There's also another very unique line which I've highlighted here. It says that there's no spiritual diversity in Brahma Jyotir. Now, what is the meaning of that? At least it's my understanding how through reading about it is, if I take an example of myself, if I have to have a relationship with person, I have different relationship. At work, I am a banker. At home, I'm a mother. So there's a diversity in my relationship with each individual person. Now, when I have that diversity, what is the root cause of that diversity? The root cause is I'm having a relationship with the person, right? So hence, there's a one-to-one relationship. Hence, my roles are diverse and I have diversity in my relationship. But if I'm trying to have a relationship with like a power or a source of light, can I have a relationship with light? सुला दिया क्या मैंने सबको?
No, Mataji.
So the thank you. So the concept is you need to come to the understanding that Krishna is in the Bhagwan feature. He has a form, and hence I can have a relationship with Krishna. In Vaikuntha Loka, Krishna is in full opulence. So we always are in like awe, reverence of Krishna. So there is a relationship, there is a diversity there because I am understanding Krishna as a person. But when I am understanding, or the Mayavadis come to the realization of Brahma Jyotir, there cannot be any diversity. There cannot be any diversity because of there's no relationship with this with the power, because they're not coming to the understanding that Krishna is a person. Also, this line of the Paramatma manifestation is also temporary. Now, when I was reading through it, and I was like, how can Paramatma feature be, a temporary feature on it? With the Shirudikshana Vishnu, does it mean that, the Parma, like after the body passes away, Krishna leaves us? No. So the way I have heard Mataji explain this in some of the classes is, and that's why I remember more examples than any Shastric reference is, let's say if I have my child was in India, we let kids go out to shops and buy something which is like in our street and stuff like that, right? So if I were to send a 2-year-old to a store to get, let's say, a packet, or 2-year-old or 5-year-old to get a packet of milk, do you think somebody will not look at them? What is the first thing that you will do if you're letting a child go out? What is the thing that you're going to be doing?
Watching them over.
Watching them, right? Thank you, Zami Mataji. So you will be watching them. So in the material universe, when living entities are created and the living entities come into the material world, why? Because we wanted to enjoy anything other than Krishna. So Krishna created the material world and here said, go enjoy. And jab tum logon ka dimag theek ho jayega, when you want to come back, use the Vedas and come back to me, right? So, but Krishna does not leave us. When we are in the material world, he is with us in the Paramatma feature. But when we come to the realization that, I'm completely surrendered and I have the chance to go back to Goloka or Vaikuntha Loka and anything in the spiritual sky, I don't need the Krishna or Vishnu does not need to be inside me in the Paramatma feature. Why? Because he's there in person. So if I need to get something, Krishna and Vishnu will help me right there. That is how the understanding of this particular line is supposed to be read is Paramatma manifestation is also temporary because Krishna comes along with us in the Paramatma feature till we come to the realization that, who am I? Now, when I'm a realized person, I'm having a direct interaction with Krishna or Vishnu, so I do not need to, the Paramatma feature does not need to be there. That is the reason why we say Paramatma manifestation is not eternal in the spiritual world, it is only eternal in the material world because he is there as a guide, as a support for anything and everything that we need. But when we come to the spiritual world, we are there directly interacting with Krishna, so he does not need to be present in the Paramatma feature. He's the complete energetic person, and he possesses different and separated internal energies. It's interesting when Mataji, I've heard her in classes, be saying like Krishna himself does not know how many energies he has. So the acharyas, for our understanding, have typically given or subdivided Krishna's energies into three forms. Does anybody remember what those three forms are? You all have the power to unmute. Anybody? Your hands are raised. I know Bidisha Mataji and Sumati Mataji, you're looking to read.
Mataji.
Anybody? You all have read it. If you see the name, you'll know it. Anybody? Just try. Please try.
Can I try, Mataji?
Please go ahead, Bidisha.
External, internal, and marginal energies.
And what are the words that we use, Mataji?
Bahiranga is external, Antaranga is internal, and Tatha Shakti, if I'm not wrong, is marginal.
That is perfect. Now, what is the purpose of external energy and what is the purpose of internal energy?
External energy is the material energy,
Mm-hmm.
and internal energy are basically the superior, like the living entities, superior.
Living entities. Okay. Thank you so much for trying. Anybody else, Dr. Prakash? I thought I saw you on mute.
Hare Krishna Mataji. The external energy is the Prakruti or the material world. The internal energy is Lord himself. And the marginal energy is the living entities.
Okay. Anybody else would like to chime in? Sumati Mataji, your hand is raised for reading or you want to answer?
That's for reading, Mataji.
Okay. The answers are correct. So Bidisha Mataji said it correctly. So there are three, we divide, like the different classifications, and there will be one more classification, I think, coming in the next verse. So we have the external energy, the internal energy, and the marginal energy. External energy, as she said, is called Bahiranga Shakti. Internal energy is called Antaranga Shakti. And the marginal potency is called Tatha Shakti. What is the purpose of external energy, or what is the role that the external energy plays? External energy is nothing but Mahamaya. It forces people to forget about Krishna. Internal energy is called Yoga Maya. Yoga Maya helps a living entity always remember about Krishna. So anybody who is in Yoga Maya will never come out from Goloka, because they're constantly in it. It helps you always remember who you are and what is your purpose, in life, which is nothing but to be an eternal servitor of Krishna. And then there is the Tatha Shakti, which is called the marginal energy. And the way I remember Mataji explaining that is, if you take a track of a land close to the beach, sometimes that land is underwater, sometimes it is not under there. So that is kind of like the stage that our living entities are. Sometimes we are, we are in the platform of mode of goodness, where I'm understanding, where I'm floating between the Yoga Maya and the Mahamaya, because I'm getting pulled in different directions till I come to the state of realization. So that is like the three major classifications that we have for, or Acharyas. One of the ways that Acharyas has given us the classification of energies of Krishna. Also, when Mayavadis talk about the philosophy of it is like a power, where is the power coming from? And I think either Mataji or Naman Mishra Prabhu, I think I've heard one of his classes explaining it, is like, you have like a Superman, right? And there's a power of the Superman. Where is that power of the Superman coming from? From the Superman himself. So is the man or the energetic greater, or the energy greater? Energy is coming from the energetic, so the person is much more greater. So they have to understand that the root cause of everything that happens in this universe is nothing but Krishna. Now, when we're talking about the separated energies Krishna, in this particular verse, we're talking about the 8 different manifestations, which is earth, water, fire, air, and sky. Now, these we call them as gross energies of Krishna. Gross energies, why? Because it is something that I can use my senses to do it. And if I'm looking at it right here, but each one of them will have like one less form that I can touch. For example, if I'm looking at Bhumi, which is the earth, can I see it with all the 5 senses? Meaning, can I see it? Yes. Can I hear Bhumi? Yes. Can I smell it, like the smell of earth? I can. Can I taste it and can I touch it? Yes. So I can perceive earth with all the five senses. In water, it's all the four senses, you just don't have smell. Then if I'm looking at fire, there's no taste, I can't taste fire. You better not taste it, otherwise I don't know what will happen to it. And with air, you can hear air, and you can feel the air. And then finally it is ether, which is nothing but like a subtle sound. So it is the sound waves. So with all the five, which is the first five that they're talking about, which is earth, water, fire, air, and sky, or ether. Sometimes sky is also called as ether at some point of time. Why are they called gross? Because they can be realized, or they can be felt by our five senses. The other three, which is mind, intelligence, and false ego, are a little bit more subtle, because you have to have like a deeper understanding, where you have to think about it to try and understand all the three subtle concepts of these energies. Now, material science is only subjected to the five and the sense objects associated with that. So earth, water, fire, air, and sky, sound, touch, form, taste, and smell is all what the material energies think, or material science is talking about. However, philosophers who want to think beyond, who am I, or start analyzing who am I, and they start understanding it, they will have a little understanding of the mind, intelligence, and false ego. But again, it is not perfect. Now, false ego is what? Ego is better, false ego is not good. So ego is, I am an eternal servitor of Krishna. False ego means that it is I am the enjoyer. I want to be this. I am the lord of this. That is false ego, because that is inaccurate. Then you have intelligence. Now, this particular line, I apologize. I wasn't able to connect with Mataji. I still have some questions regarding it. But I think in one of the chapters where this particular line, where it says intelligence refers to the total material creation called Mahatattva. Now, how is Mahatattva called as intelligence? And I'll share a particular paragraph after we read the 24 elements, and see if somebody who's attending the advanced classes can explain, if you want to take a shot at it. Now, there's 8 separated energies, which is earth, water, fire, air, sky, and then the 3, which is mind, intelligence, and false ego. All these are used as the concept to come up with the 24 elements of the material world, which is the subject matter of Sankhya philosophy. What is Sankhya? Sankhya is analysis of, is basically analytical study of the soul. We have read about Sankhya philosophy in what chapter? It's in, I think, chapter 2, right? Who am I? Because Krishna is saying, you're not the body, you're the soul. What is the size of the soul? Who can tell me what is the size of the soul?
1 by 10,000, the tip of one single hair.
Perfect. Yes. So that is like where you're analyzing soul, like what are the qualities? There is no beginning, there is no end, it is eternal. So that concept of that understanding of Sankhya, that or analytical study of the soul, is the Sankhya philosophy, which we've already covered in chapter 2. Now, Sankhya philosophy was actually first started, not the atheist. There are 2 philosophies in there. One is from the original Sankhya philosophy, which is accepted in Bhagavad Gita, is through Lord Kapila. I believe it's in verse 2. I think I wrote it down. Yeah, 2.39. It talks about what Sankhya philosophy is, because Lord Kapila, who's also an incarnation of Krishna, is explaining the Sankhya philosophy to his mother Devahuti. And the basic concept there is the same thing that we have read before, and the beginning of the chapter is, how is this material world created? Lord Vishnu is looking at the Prakriti. He glances over at the Prakriti, impregnates it, and different living entities are created. However, there is also an atheistic Sankhya philosophy, somebody who wanted to, just spread wrong information. I have no idea what the person said or anything, but but because it was so popular, in Bhagavad Gita, we're clearly differentiating that when we're talking about it, an atheistic Sankhya philosophy can only remain in this 24 elements. It cannot go beyond it to understand who Krishna is. Now, when we talk about this 8 material or separated energies of Krishna, how did it become 24? Does anybody want to take a shot at it? We've all read this in the 18-day class. What is the 24 elements? Anybody?
I can name only 23, Mataji. I was searching for the 24th. I didn't get it.
Sorry.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Okay, Dr. Prakash Pai, go ahead.
5 Karmendriya, 5 Gnanendriya,
Mhm.
5 major elements: earth, sky, ether, water, and fire,
Mhm.
and 5 sense objects.
Perfect.
That makes 20, plus mind, body, and mind, intelligence, and the false ego,
Perfect.
and one more.
Anybody else who would like to chime in? Perfect, Dr. Prakash Parekh. It is
Thank you, Mataji.
Simi Mataji or
Actually,
Poonam.
five sense objects also: sight, smell, hear, touch, taste.
He said that, Mataji. There's one missing.
Mataji, one is pradhana, mode of material nature.
The 3 modes of material nature. Thank you so much, Poonam Mataji. That is correct. So I'm just going to repeat it. So the 5 and I'm going to list it down just so that if somebody doesn't know it, they can do it. So it's the 5 gross elements which we read, which is earth, water, fire, air, ether. Then you have the 5 acquiring knowledge acquiring senses. Like how do we acquire knowledge? Through eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and skin. Then you also have the working senses, which is the voice, legs, hands, our anus and genital system. Then you have the 5 sense objects, which is smell, taste, form, touch, sound. The 3 other elements, subtle elements, which is a false ego, intelligence, mind. And then the last element is the 3 modes of material nature. So the Sankhya philosophy is just engrossed in this 24 elements. They cannot go beyond it. Versus understanding the science of Krishna consciousness, we need to go to a level, it can only be done when we completely surrender onto Krishna to try and understand who we are. There's also another example that Mataji shared is because we don't understand the power behind all these external energies. I remember, I think she was sharing an example that Srila Prabhupada has said in one of his lectures is, this is just an example to show why a Mayavadi philosophy is so inaccurate, because they don't want to understand or come to the concept of understanding that beyond all these different energies. So, all these energies are different energies Krishna has created, but he's still separate from them, right? But because they cannot understand who's behind it, they don't understand who God is. They will never come to the realization of God. And the example that was shared was, let's say there was a bag, and this is an example she has shared that was in one of the lectures of Srila Prabhupada, that let's say there was a bag of rice and it's like rainy season and it is a little moist. So a scorpion comes and, finds it as like a perfect place for hatching its eggs. It lays its eggs and it goes away. And a little bit later, because of the heat and the moistness, what's happening is there's a lot of scorpions that, the eggs mature and scorpions are coming out. So a person who's not in complete realization sees, oh, a bag of rice is producing scorpions. So how imperfect is that knowledge? Because they're not realizing who's the source of it. This was just an example that was shared, so I'm just sharing that with you. So to come to the realization of everything else is in this particular thing, we have to, so there are a lot of points on this, so we have to read through each one of them to try and see how we can understand the concept of it. So the main thing we're taking back from this is there are 5 gross elements, there are 3 subtle elements, and then who's the source behind everything is a Mayavadi will think that it just came. There's no person behind it, because then they'll have to understand that there is a form for Krishna. But we have to, when we are in the science of Krishna consciousness, we come to a higher realization that we understand who's the power behind it. Is the energy bigger or the energetic bigger? The energy is not bigger because the energy is coming from the energetic. So it's not a tongue twister. So where is the power coming from? The power is coming from the person. Hence, you have to come to the realization that Krishna is in the Bhagwan feature or Krishna is a person. Then you can have diversity in relationship with him. You cannot have a relationship with Krishna or as a person when I'm thinking of Krishna as a power, because that's, as a normal human being, I can have a relationship with an individual. I cannot have a relationship that I have a bulb staring at my face, right? I can't have a relationship with that light because there's no personal connection there. Fortunately, this is a little bigger of a verse. Any questions on this? Khushbu Mataji,
Hare Krishna Mataji.
is there a question or you wanted to read?
Question Mataji.
Yes, please go ahead.
Mataji, I just want to know, is this Purushas and Paramatma same?
Purushas are, what are Purushas? Any incarnation of Krishna is
Yeah.
Purusha. So what is Paramatma? Paramatma is nothing but Kshirodaksha Vishnu present in us. So would that, answer your question, Mataji, would that be the same?
Mataji, actually the Rhine is written as diffused as the all-pervading super souls in the universe and is known as Paramatma.
Correct. So
And
Kshirodaksha Vishnu, because you understand, right? Krishna is present in us and the Paramatma feature. Is there any doubts there?
no, Mataji.
So Krishna expands himself into different avatars or purushas or incarnations. They're just different words of the same word. And he's present in us. And that Paramatma feature is an expansion of Krishna called as Kshirodakshai Vishnu.
Yes, Mataji, I understood that.
Okay. Any other questions, Mataji?
No, only thing was that I was getting confused because it's written this Purushas are called incarnations. So is it, so I was thinking, is it same as Paramatma that Vishnu is, no, the Shirodakshai Vishnu is only Purusha? That was confused.
Purusha is an alternate word for incarnation. Incarnation are nothing but expansions of Krishna. So you read in the next version, where Srila Prabhupada talks about Achinta Bheda Bheda. Krishna is present in Goloka, Krishna is present in Vaikuntha, Krishna is present in all of us as the Paramatma feature. So Krishna is expanding himself, right? To be able to be there with each individual thing. So whether it is an expansion, whether I'm calling the expansion of Krishna as an expansion, I can call that expansion as Purusha, I can call that expansion as incarnation. So you can call it different names, but in each living entity, Krishna is present as an expansion of Krishna. That expansion can be called as incarnation. That Krishna expansion is in us. The Paramatma feature is nothing but the expansion of Krishna in us, which is called as the Kshirodakshai Vishnu.
Okay, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Is there any other questions or could we read?
Mataji, I have one question.
Go ahead.
Mataji, for regarding false, you just said that I am the subjector of Krishna is ego, but I am is false ego. So I am a bit confused here. Like, still
Yeah.
it's a false ego.
No. So ego basically means, like, in material English, like if you're looking at the word ego, so just make sure that you are understanding it not in concept of English that we learn, because ego in English means what? It's like, oh, I'm this, I'm hi-fi, that is ego. But in terms of Bhagavad Gita, ego is good because ego means I'm an eternal servitor of Krishna. That is what is my constitutional position, is to serve Krishna. That is the definition of ego in Bhagavad Gita. What is false ego? False ego means I am the enjoyer, because the only enjoyer in Krishna, according to only enjoyer in this entire material universe is what? Is Krishna. What are the purpose of the living entities? The living entities were created so they can be enjoyed. Krishna could have a relationship with them, right? So we are eternal servitors of Krishna. That is ego. False ego is when I come to this, false ego only comes into the material world. Why? Because the soul says, is like, I'm done enjoying you with you, Krishna. I want to go enjoy myself. So he created this material world. So it's like, okay, you want to go enjoy. But in that material world, I think this is my house. This is, my property. This is there. Like, did we build the brick? Where did the brick come from? The brick came from earth. Did we build, or the mud in the earth, right? Did I create this earth? No, there's nothing that belongs to me. So when I'm thinking it is mine, that is a false ego.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions on this ones, or can we proceed? You have to finish till 12 today, so let's try and see if we can finish it. The rest ones are smaller. I think Vidisha Mataji, you were next. Please read.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Okay. Apareyam itastva anyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabaho yayedam dharyate jagat. Translation. Besides this inferior nature, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is a superior energy of mind which are all living entities who are struggling with the material nature and are sustaining the universe. Purport. Here it is clearly mentioned that living entities belong to superior nature or energy of the Supreme Lord. The inferior energy is matter manifested in different elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Both forms of material nature, namely gross, earth, etc., and subtle, mind, etc., are products of the inferior energy. The living entities who are exploiting these inferior energies for different purposes are the superior energy of the Supreme Lord. And it is due to this energy that the entire material world functions. The cosmic manifestation has no power to act unless it is moved by the superior energy, the living entity. Energies are always controlled by the energetic, and therefore living entities are always controlled by the Lord. They have no independent existence. They are never equally powerful as unintelligent men think. The distinction between the living entities and the Lord is described in Srimad Bhagavatam as follows 10:87:30. Aparimita dhrubas tanubhrito yadi sarvagatas tarhim na sasyat teti niyamo dhruva netaratha ajani cha yanmayam tad abhimuchya niyantir bhavet samam anujanatam yat amatam mata dushtat ya. O Supreme Eternal, if the embodied living entities were eternal and all-pervading like you, then you would not be under your control. But if the living entities are accepted as minute energies of your lordship, then they are at once subject to your supreme control. Therefore, real liberation entails surrender by the living entities to your control, and that surrender will make them happy. In that constitutional position, only can they be controllers. Therefore, men with limited knowledge who advocate the monistic theory that God and the living entities are equal in all respects are actually misleading themselves and others. The Supreme Lord Krishna is the only controller, and all living entities are controlled by him. These living entities are his superior energy because the quality of their existence is one and the same with the Supreme, but they are never equal to the Lord in quantity of power. While exploiting the gross and subtle inferior energy matter, the superior energy, the living entity, forgets his real spiritual mind and intelligence. This forgetfulness is due to the influence of matter upon the living entity. But when the living entity becomes free from the influence of the illusionary material energy, he attains the stage called mukti or liberation. The false ego, under the influence of material illusion, thinks, I am matter and material acquisitions are mine. His actual position is realized when he is liberated from all material ideas, including the conception of becoming one in all respects with God. Therefore, one may conclude that the Gita confirms the living entity to be only one of the multi energies of Krishna, and when this energy is freed from material contamination, it becomes fully Krishna conscious or liberated. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much for reading. So again, now we saw first classification in the previous videos. We saw that Acharya has given us the 3 classifications of the powers of Krishna, right? So we did Antaranga Shakti, Bahiranga Shakti, and Tatha Shakti. Now there's another classification where we call it as the 2 different energies of Krishna could also be, or energies of Krishna could be classified as the superior energy or inferior energy, which is called as Para Shakti and Apara Shakti also. So the Para is inferior Shakti and Apara is the superior Shakti. So the living entities belong to the superior nature. And why are we calling, so Prakriti, which is material nature, is called as inferior, and versus living entities like us are called as superior. Why are we called superior? Because constitutionally, we are part and parcel of Krishna, right? What does that mean? Krishna is nothing but Sachidananda. He is. Sumati Mataji, sorry, did you need to add something? Okay.
No, Mataji.
Oh, sorry. Okay, your hand is raised. Sorry, I just wanted to make sure. So again, we said we have two. The other classification is Parashakti and Aparashakti. Para is inferior, and Apara is the superior energy. Why are living entities called as the superior energy of Krishna? Because constitutionally we are part and parcel of Krishna, which means we also have the same quality. What do I mean by quality? Krishna is Satchitananda. He is eternal. He is full of knowledge. He is full of bliss. Because I am part and parcel of Krishna as a soul, I also have that quality in minute capacity. So I am, because my constitutional position is similar of that Krishna, I'm part and parcel of Krishna, I am a superior energy compared to the inferior energy of material nature. Now we'll go through that in a little bit detail again also. So now we've already understood the 5 gross elements and mind, intelligence, and false ego. I have not, there is I think it's a Srimad Bhagavatam reference for intelligence. We'll cover that at the end. But and I don't think so we spoke about mind. Mind basically when it comes into the energy of Krishna's is like, how is that purpose is, mind gives us the duality. Do this, don't do this. There's happiness, there is sadness. So like it's a flip side of both the coins. So that's what the role the mind plays. False ego, we said that ego is what? Ego is I'm understanding that I'm an eternal servitor of Krishna. False ego leads me to the realization, false ego basically means that I'm thinking I am the proprietor of whatever I own, which is completely inaccurate. Hence it is false ego. Again, as I said, I'll come back to that intelligence piece a little bit later because I'm not very clear about it. So we'll cover it at the end. Now, both the form of material nature, namely gross and subtle. Gross, as I said, the 5, because we can feel them with our senses, right? Versus mind, intelligence, and false ego is not something that I can use my senses to understand. I need a little bit higher level of understanding with that. Now, these two, whether they are gross or subtle energies, are still called the inferior energy of Krishna. And we, as the superior energy of Krishna, are using this for serving different purposes. Now, energies are always controlled by the energetic. I think I repeated this in the previous verse also. When we come to that, when we come to the debate of which is bigger, energy or the energetic, it is always the energetic because the energy is coming from the energetic. So all these opulences, all these powers of Krishna are coming from Krishna. So Krishna is bigger than all these individual separated energies of Krishna. The living entities are also, are part and parcel of Krishna. So we're always controlled by Krishna. However, because we are an energy of Krishna, right? And so who's controlling us? We're getting controlled by Krishna. We tend to forget that. That's a different story, but that is the real understanding that we don't have an independent existence of it. Even though I'm individualistic a soul, but who is giving me the power in this as a super soul right next to me is Krishna. But an unintelligent or an un-Krishna conscious person will never think that. If we come to that understanding of the Mayavadi philosophy that, once this gross body gets destroyed, I will merge into Krishna, that is a very improper understanding because constitutionally, we are part and parcel of Krishna, but we are not Krishna. Through our senses, I can create or in this material world, what do I have the power to create? Like if I have enough skill set or if I have enough funds, I would be able to construct a big skyscraper building. But do I have the capability of creating this universe? Can I create any one of these energies that Krishna has? No. Hence, you have to, this is what the reference for the Srimad Bhagavatam reference is. It's not word by word, I don't know the meaning of it, but generally what it is, the explanation is given here, where it says, if the living entities were eternal and all pervading like you. So remember, you should not understand this in any different way. Living entity, when it's in its constitutional position as a soul, we are always eternal, because Krishna has said that in chapter 2, that there's no beginning, there's no end. So Arjuna, get up and fight, because all these souls that you're seeing in front of you, they were in the past, they're here now, and always they will be in the future. What they're basically saying is they're trying to understand in this specific line this is just an explanation of the verse, saying, if the living entities were eternal and all pervading like you, meaning as same as you, then they would not be under your control. But everything that is happening in this material world is controlled by you. So we have to accept the fact that yes, we are part and parcel of you, but we are all minute energy particles of you. We don't have everything that you have. So my constitutional position will always be to be an eternal servitor of Krishna. So the real liberation of when I'm going to be completely realized only comes when I surrender completely onto you and understand what my true position is. The monistic theory is nothing but the same concept, that I am one and the same with God. That is false, and that will always lead us into the wrong direction. We will never skip out of the birth cycle of birth, death, old age, and disease. If we ever get stuck into this monistic theory is nothing but me and God are the same, right? We are part and parcel of Krishna. I am part and parcel of Krishna. I have the same quality as Krishna. However, I am not Krishna. And the practical example that I had just explained is, I have the power to create a big building, a house, anything that is in my power to do it, but I don't have the power. I might have the quality, but I don't have the quantity of power, because there is no end of the energies that Krishna has, versus me as a living entity. My energies, my capabilities are very, very limited. So once we come to the understanding that you have to understand that Krishna is the only controller and all living entities are controlled by him. Again, why? Energy is controlled by the energetic. That's why we are energies of Krishna, separated energies of Krishna. Hence, we are controlled by him. There is no existence the living entities are his superior energy. I think I already explained this before, is because in quality, I'm also Satchitananda, but I don't have the quantity associated with that. But when I come into this material world, what is happening? I'm forgetting my relationship with Krishna. When I'm forgetting my relationship with Krishna, because I'm under the scope of Maya, I forget it, and I will, I'm getting stuck in this particular cycle. And how do I get out of this cycle is to devote myself, come to the realization. And a realization of what? Realization of Krishna and the Bhagwan feature, and through what? Through Bhakti Yoga. Now, the only thing that is in my control is what? I can practice, I can put in the work, I can read, I can chant, and then based upon my level of dedication, Krishna will bless me whenever the time is right to give me that understanding. But till I come to that understanding, what I cannot do is give up on the discipline of what I'm doing. We have to put in the work. And that could be, multitude of generations, or if my dedication is very pure, Krishna will bless us instantly. So we have to put in the work. We cannot just say, oh, Krishna, why is, one person like this, one person is that. No, forget about what anybody and everybody is doing. What are we doing? What is in my control? Can I read? Yes. Can I chant? Yes. What can I do? Every time I eat, 3 times a day, if I have the capability of doing, if I'm cooking, offer the food. So do the activities, because the activities in Bhakti Yoga are the ones that are going to help us come to the realization of who am I, what is my relationship with Krishna, and the activities are the ones that are going to lead us back to Krishna. I think, yeah, and the last phrase basically says, Gita confirms the living entity to be one of the multitude of energies of Krishna. Living entities are the superior energy. And when this energy, which is me, is freed by the material contamination, when my purities of the heart are cleared up, I become fully Krishna conscious, and I can find my path, find my way back to Krishna. Now, how are the purities cleared? We read it in verse number 1. The very important thing is hearing it from authorized sources, reading it from authorized books like Srila Prabhupada books. We will come to that realization. But the discipline of doing what we're doing has to be there. So put in the work and then see you will reap the fruits of the work. Any questions on this?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes, Mataji.
Mataji, actually, I still don't understand like the living entities who are exploiting this inferior energies for different purposes. Can you
So the way I realize it, Mataji, and I apologize, my prep is a little less today because I was not able to get hold of Mataji. She's in multitude of classes. So this is how I understand, right? So in this material world, we have the five gross elements and the three subtle elements, right? I am using earth to, I use earth, water, fire to do what? To build something, all the factories, everything that is happening in us for my benefit. So I'm using this inferior energy for different purposes.
Okay.
Correct? To do whatever I want. Because can I do anything in this universe without these gross elements or subtle elements? Nothing.
No.
So hence, in this case, but don't think inferior energy is any less, because when I'm not in my right senses and I am not realized, who's controlling me? This inferior energy is controlling me. But when we say superior energy, we are saying superior energy, which is a real at the stage of realized soul. I can use these different inferior energies for my benefit. I can use these to build a home. I can use this to build something. I can use it for food. I can use it for water. I can use water to, nourish myself. I can use the fruits to nourish myself. So I'm using that. Is the air, water, earth, are they using us? No, they're not, right? They're serving us. In that case, that is my understanding, unless somebody else wants to add on. Did that make sense, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji.
Oh.
I didn't think it that way. And the second thing is, Mataji, in that Srimad Bhagavatam explanation, in one sentence it is written, in that constitutional position.
We are the
only, yeah.
That is one more line I highlighted that I need to have to do it on there. So I will bring that up. Yes, as I told you, it's like I usually have a chance to talk to her for 5-10 minutes. Unfortunately, I was not able to get hold of her. So I will get us like how is, because on one line we are reading that Lord Krishna is the only controller, but how is in my constitutional position where I'm in the realized state that who am I, how do I become a controller? That was not something that I got. So thank you. I was not the only one who had that question. Unless somebody who's in a second level, does somebody want to attempt to answer that question? Did you get the question here? So here it says, where was it, Mataji? It was a little above it.
O Supreme Eternal, in that paragraph, after that verse.
Where is it? Explaining the internal.
Here. Come down, Mataji. Yes. Here. The real liberation is surrender, and there in that paragraph.
In that particular paragraph. So that's the question, is like, if I am on this, because we just also read that if I think it is me who's the controller or me the enjoyer, then I'm under false ego. But here the line here is said is when I am in the constitutional position, I am a controller. So I don't know how to explain, unless somebody knows who is attended level 2 can answer that. Does anybody want to attempt to answer that? Koi haan ya na to bol do yaar, please. Nobody, all silence. Dr. Prakash Parekh, you are in level 2, right? Sumati Mataji, I know you're reading, sorry. Do you want to attempt to answer that?
Yes, Mataji, I couldn't understand the question. Could you explain me again?
Yeah, so the line here says is when I'm in the constitutional position as a living entity, I become the controller. But the line on the first line paragraph says Supreme Lord Krishna is the only controller. So in my constitutional position, how do I become the controller?
No, Mataji, I don't understand. We never become a controller anyway.
So we never, and I think that was my understanding. Bharati Mataji, did you want to answer or do you want to read?
Mataji, I would like to try. You're talking about O Supreme Eternal, it's the embodied living entities where eternal and all pervading like you, right, Mataji?
Yeah, but the line here is I
But-
just lost the line
But
here.
they are not all pervading, no, Mataji?
That is true, Mataji. That's not the line. The line is here. Bidisha Mataji, help me out. I think I just lost it again. Therefore, the liberation and constitution.
Mataji,
This line here, right here.
yes.
So when I'm in the constitutional position, only in that constitutional position, only can they be controllers. But the line right below it is because at least this is my understanding, is Krishna is the only controller. In constitutional position, when I'm the eternal servitor of Krishna, how do I become a controller? How do you answer that? Okay, we'll leave it up to discussion for Mataji because that seems to be a little contradictory. So I'll let Mataji answer that next week. Any other questions on this verse? Bharati Mataji, did you want to add something?
No, Mataji.
Okay, just mute all. Sumati Mataji, would you like to read the next one?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
एतद्योनीनि भूतानि सर्वाणीत्युपधारया अहं कृत्स्नस्य जगतः प्रभवः प्रलयस्तथा. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both its origin and dissolution. Purport, Jai Srila Prabhupada. Everything that exists is a product of matter and spirit. Spirit is the basic field of creation, and matter is created by spirit. Spirit is not created at a certain stage of material development. Rather, this material world is manifested only on the basis of spiritual energy. This material body is developed because spirit is present within matter. A child grows gradually to boyhood and then to manhood because of that superior energy, spirit soul being present. Similarly, the entire cosmic manifestation of the gigantic universe is developed because of the presence of the super soul Vishnu. Therefore, spirit and matter, which combine together to manifest this gigantic universal form, are originally two energies of the Lord, and consequently, the Lord is the original cause of everything. A fragmental part and parcel of the Lord, namely the living entity, may, by manipulation of material energy, construct a skyscraper, factory, or city, but he cannot create matter out of nothing, and he certainly cannot construct a planet or a universe. The cause of the universe is the super soul, Krishna. Mataji, can you scroll up? Yeah, thank you. The cause of the universe is the super soul Krishna, supreme creator of all individual souls and the original cause of all causes, as the Katha Upanishad confirms. Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much for reading. So here Krishna says, of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I'm both its origin and dissolution. So Krishna is responsible for creation, maintenance, sustenance, and also destruction of both the material and the spirit of the material world. So everything that exists is a matter of product, product of matter and spirit. Now we learned in the two first verses out here is everything that is created from this original, as I like to call it, like the raw material, which is the Mahatattva. So Mahatattva is also like supreme consciousness of Krishna because it created, from Krishna's glance, all the universes are created. So even though it is a matter, it manifests itself in the form of matter. And what is spirit? Spirit is nothing but the soul. So if I take myself as a living entity, the gross body is matter, and the spirit is the soul inside me. So everything that exists is a combination of these two. Spirit is called as the basic field of creation, and matter is created by the spirit. So who created this matter? The basic raw material of everything is Krishna. So he is the supreme soul, which creates everything associated with that. Spirit is not created. When we say spirit is not created, what do we mean by that? Is there any beginning or end of soul? As a living entity, the soul is always internal. So who's the supreme soul associated, who created all these souls, is Krishna. So spirit is not created at a certain stage of material development, but from the spiritual energy, this material world is created. So every living entity has a combination of the raw material, which is the matter, as well as the spirit that goes into the raw material for it to grow. In chapter 2, I think Mataji, when she was explaining, we say it's like the body doesn't grow, body changes. And what causes the body to change from boyhood to from an infant to boyhood to youth and to old age? What is the thing that is constant is the soul, and the soul is making changes in the body. So we change bodies to be able to go to the different stages. So what is the spiritual energy? It is the soul which is making us develop into different stages of life. And I think the example, I already shared it before, was as a fragmental portion of Krishna, my quality is same. I'm also Satchit Ananda. However, I don't have the quality of what Krishna has. I'm part and parcel. I am not Krishna. I'm not equal to Krishna. I'm a tiny, minute part of Krishna. So in my capacity as a living entity, I might have the capability of creating a factory, a city, or a skyscraper, but I don't have the capability of creating a universe. I don't have the capability of creating air, water, ether, fire, right? So with that understanding, I think when I started the chapter, I said Krishna consciousness is nothing but a science. We are analyzing everything. So even though I don't have like a proof, I can't go and ask, it's like, did you create the universe? I can't go and ask each and everybody this question. So what I'm doing is I'm analyzing, I'm understanding the science of Krishna consciousness, and then I'm using the proof which is given in Vedas. I'm using those references to understand that I'm part and parcel of Krishna. I'm not equal to Krishna. Why? Because an example that I'm seeing right here is I have the capability to create something which is in my control. I can create a city, I can create a factory, I can create a skyscraper, but do I have the capability of creating a universe? Do I have the capability of creating the 5 gross elements or the 3 subtle elements? No. So who am I? I am a soul. My constitutional position is to be a servitor of Krishna, and not just understanding it theoretically. At some particular point of time, when we come to the realization, that realization is the key. And how do I come to that realization is constantly hearing, constantly chanting, constantly practicing. So that practice needs to be there in whatever sphere of life you're there. So it doesn't matter the quality of practice you're doing, it is the quality. You commit yourself to doing 1 round of chanting, do it. Don't try and go up. Oh, one day I'm going to do 16, one day I'm going to do 4. The more round of chanting you do, it is better, but have the discipline. If I'm doing 1, make sure you're doing 1 to all, because like when we were taking that vow, we took a vow that we'll at least do 1. Stick to that. Try and do as much as you can, but the way we are going to get into the to come to that discipline is if we stuck to it. You're doing 16, make sure you do 16 every day. You're doing 14, make sure you're doing 14 every day. Commit yourself. So try and set smaller targets and make sure you attain the target. Anything more you do is well and good, but stick to a discipline. And I think I've heard Mataji also say that is, we need to make Krishna consciousness as part of our daily schedule. So if I schedule myself, I'm at work from 8:30 to 6. So that's my schedule, right? I know I'm going to be working at that time. So when I come back, get up half an hour early, read a verse of Bhagavad Gita, read Bhagavatam, whatever is that, what you're associating with it, that discipline needs to be there. And that discipline is very key for us to be able to go back to Krishna. Any questions on this verse, or we could read more? I think the next one was, who had raised hands? I think nobody else would like to read? Koi to haath utha lo. Simi Mataji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Go ahead.
Chapter text 7 Mataji. Huh?
Yes.
Mata
Sorry.
Mata parataram nanyat kinchit asti dhananjaya mai sarvam idam protam sutre manigana iva. Translation. O conqueror of wealth, Arjuna, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. Purport. There is a common controversy over whether the supreme absolute truth is personal or impersonal. As far as Bhagavad Gita is concerned, the absolute truth is the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, and that is confirmed in every step. In this verse, in particular, it is stressed that the absolute truth is a person, that the personality of Godhead is the supreme absolute truth, is also the affirmation of the Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. That is the supreme absolute truth personality of Godhead is Lord Krishna, who is the primeval Lord, the reservoir of all pleasure, Govinda, and the eternal form of complete bliss and knowledge. These authorities leave no doubt that the absolute truth is a supreme person, the cause of all causes. The impersonalist, however, argues on the strength of the Vedic version given in the Sveteshvatara Upanishad. Tato yad uttarataram tad arupam anamayam ya itad vidur amartas te bhavanti athe tare dukkham ivapi yanti. In this material world, Brahma, the primeval living entity within the universe, is understood to be the supreme amongst the demigods, human beings, and lower animals. But beyond Brahma, there is a transcendence who has no material form and is free from all material contamination. Anyone who can know him also becomes transcendental, but those who do not know him suffer the miseries of the material world. The impersonalist puts more stress on the word apuram, but this apuram is not impersonal. It indicates the transcendental form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge as described in the Brahma Samhita quoted above. Other verses in the Sveteshvarata Upanishad substantiate this as follows. Vedaham itam purusham mahantam aditya varnam tamasa parastat tama iva vidvan amrita iha bhavati nanya pantha vidhate ananaya yasmat param na param asti kinchit yasman na niyo na jyayo sti kinchit. I know that Supreme Personality of Godhead who is transcendental to all material conceptions of darkness. Only he who knows him can transcend the bonds of birth and death. There is no way for liberation other than this knowledge of the Supreme Person. There is no truth superior to that Supreme Person because he is the supermost. He is smaller than the smallest and is greater than the greatest. He is situated as a silent tree and he illumines the transcendental sky as a tree spreads its roots. He spreads his extensive energies. From these verses, one concludes that the supreme absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead who is all-pervading by his multi-energies, both material and spiritual. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. So again, here what Arjuna Krishna is saying is, O conqueror of wealth, Arjuna, that is Dhananjaya, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearl are strung on a thread. And I remember this example where she talks about it, Mataji says in the 18-day class is like, if I'm wearing a pearl necklace, each individual pearl is a separate entity, but what is the thing that is joining everything? I might not see the thread, but if somebody were to tell me a statement, it's like, yeah, I see the pearls, they're all beautiful, but there's nothing, they're all sticking by themselves. Would that be a true statement? No, right? So the common entity that joins everything, that makes everything work in coordination, makes it as like one particular entity and works perfectly to make it beautiful is Krishna. So Krishna is like that thread in a pearl necklace, which is, you might not be able to see it, but that is what is keeping everything together. So again, we come to the contradiction between the common controversy whether Supreme Absolute is personal or impersonal is whether that's what is personal and impersonal feature of Krishna, where they say they're only realizing Krishna as a power, whereas that is the impersonal realization, and personal features understanding Krishna as a person. So in this particular verse, they're again stressing the fact that the absolute truth of a truth is Krishna is a person. and which is of they're giving again, Krishna is giving to understand that Krishna is the supreme person. One, because we need proof, and Krishna consciousness is science. We are using the references from different shastras. In Brahma Samhita also, Brahma is one of the prayers, and this I think we read it in chapter 2 also, this reference was given, is Ishvara Parama Krishna. Of all the lords, he is the eternal primal lord. There is no lord that is bigger than them, bigger than Krishna. He's Satchitananda. He's eternal, he's full of knowledge, he's full of bliss. Key point, Vigraha, he has a form. That is the key point. When everybody is saying in our material universe, the biggest law that, or the supreme law that we see in the universe creation, if I don't understand Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead, is Brahma. But who's Brahma praying to? Brahma is praying to Krishna, and he's saying that you are Satchidananda, you have a Vigraha, you have a form. So we have to also understand the fact that Krishna is a person. The impersonalists are using different references. Just like a personalist for us, like through Bhagavad Gita, we are using references to prove that Krishna is a person. The impersonalists also can use the Vedas and interpret it a different way. I don't know the complete verse, but the key point that they're talking about in this is it's arupam. Rupa means form or anything that has a structure. Arupa means anytime you add in front of Sanskrit is, I believe I've read it in like Vishnu Sahasranama, is like can be represented as a negative, or it can be positive also. For example, arupam here basically means is not that it does not have a form. It is saying that he has a form that is indescribable. How can I describe something which is full of knowledge? How can I describe something which is full of bliss? How can I describe something which is eternal? So arupam here by the impersonalist is said, we have a reference here in this verse, in this Upanishad, it is saying arupam, meaning he does not have a form. So that proves our theory. So anytime there is a context given, you can interpret it according to how my understanding is. That's the reason why when we read Bhagavad Gita, or we are leaning it from some, when we're reading it from an authorized source like Srila Prabhupada, we have to understand the knowledge of science which has come down through disciplinic succession, because I'm not mentally concocting it. I am reading it from an authorized source. And when I'm reading it from an authorized source, I also have to understand it from the authorized source. Hence, I don't get into the stuck where, it says arupam, which means he doesn't have a form. So hence Krishna does not have a form. Versus the context that is used here is, he is so great that I don't have a way of describing his eternal form. I don't have a way of describing his eternal, like unlimited knowledge, unlimited bliss that he provides, but he is Satchidananda Vigraha. He has a form. I just am not able to describe it. Hence, he's arupam. Arupam doesn't here in this context means that he has no form. It just means his form is so huge, humongous, and effulgent that I don't have words to explain it. I'm not able to describe it. That is how this particular verse has to be read. Now, the Mayavadis use this particular word, but in the same Shastras, which is the Shesvasara Upanishad, there is another verse which is said that anybody who understands Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead, who's transcendental to anything that is material in this universe, will be coming out from this cycle of birth and death. So how can you take one thing out of context and use that as your reference, and then you don't come with the very next paragraph or few paragraphs down, the same Shesvasara Upanishad is also claiming what? That Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, but the Mayavadis philosophers will not accept it. So hence, to conclude, there is no superior truth than Krishna. He is present in the smallest of the small, biggest of everything, because he's present in each living entity as the Paramatma feature. So again, this whole proof, the constant from I think 7 to 12, not 7 to 12, 4 to 12 is Krishna is talking about his opulences. Krishna is talking about how, if I am not devoted, I'm not a realized person, right? Right now, I'm not a realized person. So how do I find Krishna? I can see the sun and say, okay, Krishna is in there. When I taste water, I can say, okay, that taste is Krishna. If you can't see me, as Krishna is saying, if you can't understand me as the supreme personality of Godhead, I've created these separate material energies. When you look at them, you can think of me, because I want to see, I want to understand, if I'm looking for proof, all these separated energies are nothing but Krishna, and he's present in all of us as the Paramatma feature. So Supreme Personality of Godhead, he's all pervading, and he's whether it is a spiritual energy or material energy, everything is emanating out of him. I think Bharati Mataji, you put some question in the chat. I did not understand it. Can you please tell me? Unless you want to ask it at the end. When you talk about free will, I didn't understand what free will meant. So tell me, explain the question to me.
Mataji, we'll keep it for the end. Like free will, I remember in Prabhuji's class, once he mentioned when we are in our true ego, like when we reach Goloka, this thing, Nama, he was telling, we have the free will to serve Krishna in any capacity.
Mhm.
So is that the way to become a controller or something?
I don't really know, Mataji, but the controller still doesn't mean I'm still serving Krishna, right? So I'm not a controller. So you're trying to answer the question for the other one. So when I go back to Golaka, when we talk
Something.
about when you talk, I have a free will to serve Krishna in any of the 5 forms. So I can serve Krishna in the Shanta Rasa, Dasya Rasa, Sakhya Rasa, Madhurya Rasa, or sorry, Vatsalya Rasa or Vatsalya, and then Madhurya Rasa. That is the free will he's talking about there. But our question here was Krishna is the supreme controller. When I am realized, that's one specific line question was when I'm a realized soul, I become controller, and I don't have a way of explaining that. Because Krishna is the
We'll
supreme
keep it.
controller. What am I controlling? If I'm in the constitutional position, what am I controlling? I don't have an answer. So we let Mataji answer that.
Yes, yes, Mataji.
Hare Krishna. So any questions on this particular verse? Khushbu Mataji.
Mataji, can you please tell the meaning of the word arupa?
Arupam is basically, see, Rupa means what? Roop.
Form.
Form. Arupa means, that's what I said in Sanskrit, anything you put a word a before it, it typically means negative, but it can also mean positive. So arupam, in that particular verse, the Mayavadis say arupa means form, arupa means no form, hence khatam ho gaya. That is our proof that there is Krishna, or the Brahman feature is the highest realization. But the way that should be understood is because Krishna has so many opulences, because Krishna has so many energies, he's Sat, Chit, and Ananda, I don't have a way of describing him. Arupam here means inability to describe his form, because he's so awesome, he's so effulgent, he's so powerful that I don't have ways of describing it. So Mayavadi,
Okay,
the Arupam feature to say they don't have a form, but it should be understood that his form is so transcendental that I don't have words to describe it.
Yes,
There is
Mataji.
an English word, Mataji, indescript.
Okay.
Does it go? I mean, indescript has a very similar meaning, that it's something that you can't just simply describe it at all.
Correct. So as I said, so the concept here is it's basically, or if you say is like, it's just you can't describe it, indescribable, indescript, that's correct. It is, and that's the reason why we have to hear it from authorized sources. That's why we're reading Srila Prabhupada's book is, this is English. I can understand English in different concepts according to my understanding, but we should not read it like that. That's why the Mayavadis are wrong, because arupam there means that it is a form that is indescribable, but they are taking arupam as a form which or something which has no form. So that is the improper understanding. Hence, we need to learn it from somebody who's come down from disciplinic succession.
Yes,
Any other?
Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank
Rupa means its structure. See, you can see Krishna as a statue, you can enjoy his beauty and everything. But Arupam means no structure, no form, no statue and all.
Correct, but that is
It's
what
only blank.
No, but that is what we're saying. It is incorrect. So Mayavadis take it as arupam, but the way this particular verse is supposed to be read is his form is so great that we cannot describe it. You cannot use a word out of context in the way it was supposed to be used and use it as a proof to prove your point. So arupam in this particular verse basically means it is so great that I can't describe it. That is how you should read it. versus in this particular phrase, the Mayavadis use it to say no form, hence it's Krishna is only the power, he's not a person. So again, coming back to is there any other questions on this, or Poonam Mataji, you would like to read the next verse? Okay, Poonam Mataji, you're next. Go ahead, please.
Okay, Mataji. रसोहम पशु कौन्तेय प्रभास्मि शशि सूर्ययो प्रणवः सर्ववेदेषु शब्दः खे पौरुषं नृषु. O son of Kunti Arjuna, I am the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, thus labeled Om in the Vedic mantras. I am the sound in the ether and the and ability in man. Purport. This verse explains how the Lord is all-pervasive by his diverse material and spiritual energies. The Supreme Lord can be preliminary perceived by his different energy, and in this way he is realized impersonally. As the demigod in the sun is a person and is perceived by his all-pervading energies, the sunshine. Similarly, the Lord, although in his eternal abode is perceived by his all-pervading diffusive energies, the taste of water is the active principle of water. No one likes to drink sea water because the pure taste of water is mixed with salt. Attraction for water depends on the purity of the taste, and this pure taste is one of his energies of the Lord. The impersonalist perceives the presence of the Lord in water by its taste, and the personalist also glorifies the Lord for his kindly supplying water to quench man's thirst. That is the way of perceiving the Supreme. Practically speaking, there is no conflict between personalism and impersonalism. One who knows God knows that the impersonal conception and the personal conception are simultaneously present in everything, and that there is no contradiction. Therefore, Lord Chaitanya established his sublime doctrine, Achintya Bheda and Abheda Tattva, simultaneously one and different. The light of the sun and the moon is also originally emanating from the Brahmajyoti, which is impersonal effulgence of the Lord. Similarly, Pranav or the Omkara, transcendental sound used in the beginning of every Vedic hymn to address the Supreme Lord, also emanates from him. Because the impersonalists are very much afraid of addressing the Supreme Lord Krishna by his innumerable names, they prefer to vibrate the transcendental sound Omkara. But they do not realize that Omkara is the sound representation of Krishna. The jurisdiction of Krishna consciousness extends everywhere, and one who knows Krishna consciousness is blessed. Those who do not know Krishna are in illusion, and so knowledge of Krishna is liberation and ignorance of him is bondage. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. So again, here saying is like I think I repeated this before also. Krishna is saying, if you can't understand me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I'm giving you these different energies with which you can try and understand me through different material and spiritual energies. I am that if I'm very thirsty and I'm drink water, you can taste the taste of water in it. So that I'm the taste of water in the water. I'm the light of the sun and the moon. I'm the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. I'm the sound and ether. And if I see a person, if I individually see a person who has an ability to be great, like 99% of you can chant these verses like with your eyes closed. I don't. So that is an ability that is given by Krishna. So you have to understand. So if you're seeing somebody who's very strong, that strength is a representation of Krishna. Mayavadis here basically talk about don't want to address Krishna with the different names, because when they say this is just my understanding, is like they don't want to say the numerous names of Krishna, because then you have to now who do you address with a name? You address a person with a name, right? But what do? They chant the word Om. Om is nothing but a sound vibration of Krishna also. So there's no difference. There's really no conflict between a personalist and an impersonalist. It's about how they are perceiving it. An example that is given in this particular verse is an impersonalist will think, where is this? I think it was the taste of water. Sorry, give me 1 second. I think I lost it. So an impersonalist will see the presence of Lord in the water by its taste. Okay, so like, the taste of water is there's some particular energy in it. So that is a superpower. But the personalist will basically do what? He's using the same water to quench his thirst, but he's saying, thank you, Krishna. He's thanking a person for supplying me with this water, for creating this so that when I'm thirsty, when I have to have I'm thirsty and I have this quench, you have given this to me. So one person is thanking a power, one person is thanking the person behind it. They're both thanking the same person, but it is just the level of understanding that is different. I think I had a verse here. Sorry, give me a second. I think in one of the concept, Mataji had given thought I had a cheat sheet which she had shared. I don't know. Can you see the screen here?
Yes.
Thank you. So what does it say is, if the life of all living beings, he's the original seed giver father, the light on the sun of the moon, that is Krishna. Om of the Vedic mantras, all the mantras usually start with the word Om. So what does that Om represent? That is Krishna. The penance of aesthetics, what is the sages praying for? That penance that they receive, that is Krishna. The ability of a man, if I'm good at chanting, that ability comes from Krishna. The intelligence, if I'm really intelligent person, or I'm seeing a person, it's like, oh my God, they have so much capability of thinking outside the box, that intelligence is Krishna. If a person is very strong, that strength comes from Krishna, and so does the regulated sex life. So we will be reading about those in there. So again, the story, what Krishna is doing, and I think this particular verse, I remember Mataji explaining in the 18-day class, is this verse, she thinks about it as like I don't know if it was an explanation by Srila Prabhupada, but this is kind of like a love letter that Krishna is writing, right? So what is a love letter? A love letter in this material world is they're saying, okay, you are so and so, you have so many qualities, you are awesome, blah blah blah. I am this is my quality. I think we should match up, because then we'll be a good fit for each other. So in chapter 2, what Krishna is doing, Krishna is saying, I'm giving them the explanation about who I am. He's introducing myself to him. I'm not the body, I'm the soul. These are your qualities. And in this chapter, he's giving about his examples. Like, these are my opulences. Come back to me. Why don't you come back to me? I am all this. We'll, if you come back to me, we'll be, living happily together. So it's kind of a love letter Krishna is writing. Bhagavad Gita is writing, and he's telling, this is a letter to the soul to say, this is who you are, this is who I am, come back to me. This, we'll have a good relationship on there. Also, when this is not something that she has said, she's given us as an example also. I think it was another examples during one of the lectures, Srila Prabhupada had said that in the Western world, a lot of people, have wine or alcohol. So when they're having this wine, people apparently drink it they drink it slowly, because then you can see the taste of that particular wine. So even if such a person for a moment thinks, oh, this taste is wine is Krishna, even such a person, even though not leading a regulated life, will come at some point of time to the realization of who Krishna is, because that is the power of the word Krishna. So we should all come back to the discipline of doing what we can to try and understand who Krishna is and go from there. I think we can read 2 more verses. They're shorter ones. Who would like to read? Dr. Parekh, would you like to read?
Okay, Mataji.
Okay, 1 second. Let's see. I think you can read 9 and 10 together. Yeah, there's two shorter verses. Please read 9 and 10. Go ahead.
I'm getting 11 here. 9. Okay, fine.
Please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Punyagandha Prithvivya Cha Tejas Swami Swasmi Vibhavasau Jivanam sarvat bhuteshu tapasyasmi tapasvishu. Translation. I am the original fragrance of the earth, and I am the heat in the fire. I am the life of all that lives, and I am the presence of penance of all ascetics. Purport. Punya means that which is not decomposed. Punya is original. Everything in the material world has a certain flavor or fragrance, as the flavor and the fragrance in the flower or in the earth, in water, in fire, in air, etc. The uncontaminated flavor, the original flavor, which permeates everything is Krishna. Similarly, everything has a particular original taste, and that taste can be changed by the mixture of chemicals. So everything original has some smell, some fragrance, and some basic, some taste. Vibhava means fire. Vibhava means fire. Without fire, we cannot run factories, we cannot cook, etc. And that fire is Krishna. The heat in the fire is Krishna. According to Vedic medicine, indigestion is due to a low temperature in the belly. So even for digestion, fire is needed. In Krishna consciousness, we become aware that earth, water, fire, air, and every active principle, all chemicals and all material elements are due to Krishna. The duration of man's life is also due to Krishna. Therefore, by the grace of Krishna, man can prolong his life or diminish it. So Krishna consciousness is active in every sphere. Shall I go on, Mataji, for the 10th?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mataji. Vijema sarva bhutana viddhi partha savatanam buddhi buddhir buddhi matamasmi tejas teja svinamaham. Translation. O son of Prutha, I know that I am the original seed of all existences, the intelligence of the intelligent, and the prowess of all the powerful man. Purport. Bijam means seed. Krishna is the seed of everything. In contact with the material nature, the seed fructifies into various living entities, movable and inert. Birds, beasts, man, and many other living creatures are moving living entities. Trees and plants, however, are inert. They cannot move, but only stand. Every entity is contaminated and every entity is contained within the scope of 8,40,000. Am I right? 84 lakhs species of life. Some of them are moving and some of them are inert. In all cases, however, the seed of the life is Krishna, as stated in the Vedic literature. Brahman, or supreme absolute truth, is that from which everything is emerging, emanating. Krishna is Parabrahma, Parabrahman, the supreme spirit. Brahman is the impersonal, and Parabrahman is personal. Impersonal Brahman is situated in the personal aspect that is stated in Bhagavad Gita. Therefore, originally, Krishna is the source of everything. He is the root, as the root of the tree maintains the whole tree. Krishna, being the original root of all things, maintain everything in the material manifestation. This is also confirmed in the Vedic literature. Yato va imani bhutani jayante. The supreme absolute truth is that from which everything is born. He is the prime eternal among all the eternals. He is the supreme living entity of all living entities, and he alone is maintaining all life. Krishna also says that he is the root of all intelligence. Unless a person is intelligent, he cannot understand the supreme personality of Godhead, Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much for reading it. So the next few verses are basically, there's not like much to understand in there. I think the synopsis that I shared was basically what is Krishna is saying the different ways he's going to be, you can perceive him. So he's saying that he's the original fragrance of the earth. So, if you've, I don't know if you've ever, like all of you, I'm pretty sure has smelled it. It's like, the smell of the earth when it is like fresh out of, after a rainfall, that original smell is Krishna. He's the heat and the fire. And the example that he's saying is like, as a human being, when I have to digest food, there's needs the temperature in the stomach and the belly needs to be a certain level. If that is not the case, then the food cannot get digested. So even that fire is that fire is Krishna. The original flavor of everything is Krishna. And the next particular verse is saying is that he's the original seed of all existing. Any living entity, whether it is inert or moving, meaning living entities like us, our animals, can move around, and inert living entities like a plant, they cannot move around. He is the source of everything, and he's present in each one of them as a super soul also. If I see an if I appreciate the intelligence in a person, that intelligence is Krishna. If I see a powerful person is able to lift up, do a lot of manual weight, that strength is Krishna. So he's just giving an example of all his opulences. You can't understand me as a person. Here's are my different energies. When you see somebody intelligent, that intelligence is gifted to me, is gifted to him by Krishna. If I am, so hence appreciate the ability that somebody has. That ability of a person is also Krishna. So he's just basically talking about the different opulences that he can share. Krishna, and where does it say? He's the seed-giving father of all the 8,400,000 species of life. There is not, everything emanates out of Krishna. Krishna glances at the material or Prakriti, and then he impregnates it with different forms of life. Krishna is the Parabrahma, everything emanates from the supreme absolute truth, which is Brahman, but they're basically doing a play of words. Brahman basically means the impersonal understanding of Krishna, and Parabrahman, you are putting a person there. He is the source of everything. So that is the complete and the true understanding of Krishna, is understanding of Krishna as a person. We are way about schedule, so we'll Mataji will start from text 11. Is there any questions? Please raise your hands. I think I saw Khushbu Mataji putting something in the chat. Let me read. The presence of love. Can you explain explain your question, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji. I was asking in the previous in text 8, Mataji.
Okay.
Presence of the Lord in water, impersonalist perceives that, and the personalist glorifies the Lord. Mataji, in both the cases, the Lord is there. So how is it different? How are personalist and impersonalist?
The Lord is Lord. So if I were saying, so that is they're giving you the example of two. So, whether it's an impersonalist or whether it's a personalist, we all need water to survive, right? When I'm truly thirsty, what do? I take a sip of water. That I can feel the taste of water in there. So an impersonalist basically saying, I can, there is some superpower that created this water. So I'm submitting myself to that superpower. That is the understanding of an impersonalist. The same water, the same taste, the same effect that it is having on a personalist is, what is he saying? Saying, Krishna, I can perceive you in this taste of water. Thank you so much for thanking a person, not thanking a power, thanking a person, saying, thank you so much for giving me the water. So when I'm thirsty, you can, I can quench my thirst. So the concept is the same. Who am I thanking? An impersonalist is thanking a power, a personalist is thanking a person. Whose understanding is better? The personalist understanding is better.
The one who is thanking.
Yeah. They both understand Krishna, but their level of understanding is different. Remember, we read in chapter 2, I can understand Krishna based upon my level of surrender. A impersonalist is only coming up to the stage of a Brahman feature. So is Brahman not Krishna? It is, but is that the perfect realization? No. So what we're saying is there's really no difference. They're all agreeing who the source of everything is, but this impersonalist is not coming to the conclusion that everything emanates from Krishna. They're thinking it is coming from a power. Who's giving that power? They don't have an answer for it.
Okay. Okay, Mataji. Got it.
Hare Krishna, thank you for coming to the session today. Let's see if I can answer. Is there any other questions? Anything else you would like to add on?
Mataji, I have a question.
Sure, Mataji, go ahead.
Mataji, in the purport of text 11, where it says Krishna is Parabrahman and the Supreme Spirit, Brahman is impersonal and Parabrahman is personal. And again, the next sentence says impersonal Brahman is situated in the personal aspect that is stated in Bhagavad Gita. Can you kindly explain that?
Yeah, it's a play of words, Mataji. It's not like too difficult. So Krishna is Parabrahman, meaning he's a super spirit, right? So
Yes.
it's again the concept of where is the energy coming from? It's coming from the energetic, right? So if I'm understanding it as a Brahman, as a power, where is that power emanating from? It is coming from the person. So if Brahman feature and Brahman is impersonal realization, Parabrahman a person, right? So Brahman feature is included in the Parabrahman feature. But a person who understands Krishna will understand both the Brahman and the Parabrahman feature, but a person who's just in the Brahman is only going to understand that. So it's not different. It's about how am I perceiving? Am I the same thing as Khushbu Mataji said, right? Both a personalist and an impersonalist needs the water to survive. They can see the taste of water. Impersonalist saying some superpower is giving me that, so thank you, superpower. A personalist saying, Krishna, thank you so much for water. Who am I thanking? Because that is my level of understanding. So like kind of a bit of a play of the words. So the Parabrahman feature is the Brahman feature is included in the Parabrahman feature. That is what they're saying. Impersonal Brahman is situated because it is situated in the personal aspect of Bhagavad Gita. But a person who's impersonalist, unless they take a step forward, will never come to that realization.
Okay. I understood. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Any other questions, or we can wrap up? Thank you again. And the 18-day session finishes in a few days. So Mataji will be back. She has not, we'll post it in the group. I don't know if it is Saturday or Sunday. I'll double check with her and I'll post it. Anything else?
No, Mataji.
No, okay. Hare Krishna, everyone. I'll stick around if you
Hare
have.
Krishna. Thank you very much, Mataji. That was
Thank you,
wonderful
Mataji.
presentation.
Thank you, Mataji. It was very good.
Thank you,
Much.
Mataji.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Very good.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji.
Hare
Thank you.
Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.